Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of prominent co-host on NBC's Today Show, Savannah Guthrie, who was abducted in the early hours of this past weekend and has been missing since, with an alleged ransom that is due by 5 p.m. local time in Arizona today. This story and situation has struck me as odd from the very beginning, and my prayers and well wishes go out to the family for her safe recovery alive and well. But I do believe there's a potential angle here that may not be looked at, and while I hope I'm wrong, it's better to put it out there in hopes that this may potentially help in some way, shape, or form. So let's look at the timeline of some possible intersecting events. On January 28th, the Gem and Mineral Show kicked off in Tucson, Arizona, where Nancy resides. This is one of the annual highlight events that takes place in Tucson, Arizona, that draws 65,000 people internationally. People flying in and out from all over the world. It would basically be a perfect scenario for a needle in the haystack, if you will. Bring someone or a team in from out of state without any red flags to go in and extract an asset. And during this particular event that lasts until February 15th, it would be hard to track. A couple days later, on January 30th, the DOJ releases the 3 million Epstein files. Among these files is an email recommendation to Jeffrey Epstein to seek assistance from a company called Glover Park Group, co-founded by Michael Feldman, who happens to be the husband of Savannah Guthrie, whose mom Nancy was abducted. That in itself wouldn't raise red flags. But Michael Feldman served on the Clinton-Gore administration, and his company specifically helped to scrub details about prominent figures to make sure that their public image was in the right light, mitigating key details for the Clintons during the time of Pizzagate and things like the Clinton kill list or body count, and likely surrounding the Clintons' involvement in Haiti with the Clinton Foundation. And also with high probability, their firm has likely seen many unredacted details concerning the relationship between Epstein and the Clintons. Was there a fear that they knew something extremely important that could potentially be leaked? Now, on January 31st, Nancy Guthrie is taken and abducted from her home. Investigators later find that there is a high probability of a sophisticated breach into Nancy's home, electronic interference, and a removal of a security camera located in a very key area, along with the presence of blood. And they say Nancy's pacemaker that was attached to her Apple Watch was also disconnected. So this person or persons knew to do that. Then here's where it gets interesting, because on February 2nd, after months and likely years of resistance, the Clintons suddenly and abruptly agree to be filmed in their under oath depositions tied to the Epstein case, which is now scheduled for February 26th and 27th. Then on February 3rd, some ransom communications come into some media outlets, including local stations and TMZ. They say one of those was deemed to be false and there's been an arrest made, but they say the demand wasn't for cash, but for large amounts of Bitcoin. And as you've seen in the recent Epstein drop, there's a potential link that suggests, allegedly, that Epstein was Satoshi himself. And if you remember, it was Dan Pena, self-made mogul, who suggests that if the population actually know who the founder of Bitcoin was, they would take their money immediately and run. Now, there were some alleged initial reports that Tommaso Cioni, who is Savannah's brother-in-law and Nancy's son-in-law, may have had some type of involvement, but that has not publicly been confirmed at this point. But is there a deeper tie here in terms of Michael Feldman, his company, his knowledge, his background with the Clintons? And was this a message to send to the family in terms of being able to touch anyone at any time and to ensure as a bargaining chip nothing would be said? I don't know. There's other reports that Savannah has conducted interviews that could be highly controversial, and the question is asked, did she piss somebody off? And then we can look at President Trump offering the FBI to be involved and provide assistance, including the director Kash Patel of the FBI, who is said in multiple reports to have already been scheduled to come to Tucson, Arizona. For what? And it just so happens to be at the same exact time that this is occurring, and so he will step in and be a part of somewhat of the investigation pertaining to Nancy's disappearance. Now, what's interesting about that is roughly 600,000 missing person reports are filed in the United States every single year. And over the past 20 years, U.S. presidents, whether it's been Bush, Bush Jr., Clinton, Obama, have provided statements of general condolences and sympathy to individuals who have been in high-profile cases. But actual presidential direction of resources has been exceptionally rare, occurring maybe only a handful of times in that span of time. And so if we assume 3 to 5 cases over the last 20 years have had some kind of involvement, which would be generous if we actually project the numbers. 3 to 5 cases with roughly 12 million missing persons reports over the last 20 years, that percentage would be roughly 0.000025% to 0.0000 0.42% of all missing person cases. And even if we round up generously, it's far below 0.001%. So is there something else going on here? Is this tied to something deeper? Is it tied to Epstein? Is there something that could potentially be leaked? And is this elderly, innocent woman being used as some kind of bargaining chip in all of this? I'm not claiming any of this is fact, but in a situation like this where there's no real information being released, I think it's important to look at all angles and possibilities in order to effectively investigate and hopefully come up with a resolution where Nancy gets to come home alive and well to her family.